Well, let's bring in Dalia Fahmy. She's the Director of International Relations and an Associate Professor of Political Science at Long Island University, speaking to us from Princeton in New Jersey. Dalia, thanks so much for joining us. Do you think at this point, judging from everything we've seen so far, that the situation in Lebanon is headed to an all-out war, similar to what we're seeing in Gaza?
It seems to a certain extent, yes. So since Israel began its aerial barrage on Lebanon, primarily in Beirut, on Monday, 700 people have been killed, and a humanitarian crisis has already begun with the displacement of over 100,000 people. And this is after the distilling and instilling of fear in the population after the pager and walkie-talkie attacks that detonated over 2,000 explosive devices that former CIA director and defense minister Leon Panetta said was a terrorist attack, a state-sponsored terrorist attack on Lebanon. Now, since today and into Saturday, Israel has now targeted the Bekaa Valley and more of southern Beirut in some of the most densely populated areas in Beirut, taking down 6 tower blocks. And so when Secretary General of the United Nations, Guterres, says that it's not just the residential buildings and the targeting, what seems to be targeting of civilians for single members of Hezbollah, that him and the Council of Foreign Ministers are warning about perpetual war, about entering into a new phase where 1 year after into a war with Gaza, that this expansion, both west and now north, is leading Israel into what is looking like a forever war, which is a blank card that is allowing it to behave in ways that are unprecedented in the past decade. With tacit permission, and especially tacit permission seemingly from the United States. And the reason why this is in part of today's conversation is that while the U.S. has signaled that it's frustrated with Netanyahu, especially after his fiery speech at the United Nations today, his sidelining of the U.S. Brokered or led ceasefire, and moving away from what is seeming the interest of the United States, he's still continuing to do it with this tacit permission. And so it begs the question of why is there no real resistance to check his power?
That is a question so many people are wanting the answer to, because many have said the U.S. could, of course, use leverage to stop Israel from these attacks. But a growing concern here, of course, is that other countries in the region will get involved. It was just a short while ago we heard a senior Iranian military commander saying if there's a ground operation into southern Lebanon, it will result in a, quote, huge defeat for Israel. What would involvement from Iran mean for a regional war?
It's not clear what the extent of Iran's involvement will be. Iran doesn't want to actually get involved. You have to remember it was just a month ago that the leader of Hamas was killed in Iran on the day of the inauguration of the Iranian president. And the fact that Iran has yet to respond signals that it doesn't really want to engage in a larger war. I mean, the question is, what will Israel continue to do that might actually goad them to enter into a larger war? This movement into Beirut is a little surprising to the extent with which the targeting and the casualties or the has extended. But it looks like also that Israel is not achieving its objectives in Gaza and is turning its eyes someplace else. Or we have not been paying attention to the right objectives. Could it be that Israel has been intending to move south all along and reclaim at least part of northern Gaza, move west and reclaim parts of the West Bank with its expanded settlements, and now move north? Move north into southern Beirut, into southern Lebanon, and to attempt to pacify some of the members of Netanyahu's right-wing government, to make them think that he's achieving their objectives. And so it's unclear that we have been possibly paying attention to a set of objectives that it said and not to the set of objectives that could be the greater intention here.
Yeah, the Palestinian Prime Minister telling the UN on Friday that Israel is planning a land grab a year, which would also mean more violations of international law, which as they've already done in Lebanon and in Gaza.
Yes, and they've also been, remember, it was the ICC and the ICJ and several UN resolutions and Security Council meetings. And today at the foreign minister level, Security Council met, and the foreign minister of Jordan said that this is going to pull the region further into an abyss. And he actually warned about this a year ago. And the abyss, he said, is going to include Israel as well and Israel's stability in the region. And so it begs the question, why is the international community at large still allowing this to continue, this right-wing Israeli government move the world and especially the region in a direction that is right now in no one's interest?
Dalia, Fahmy, really appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much again for speaking to us.
Thank you.